What's up, cannabis family? From the aficionado connoisseur to the cannabis curious, it's 4 o'clock in California. And it's time for Cannabis Saves the World. Take two.
But I think in terms of marijuana, and legalization, I think that should be a state issue, state by state. I think it's
So
up
does
to the
Biden.
states, yeah. I'm a states person. I think it should be up to the states, absolutely.
Apparently Joe Biden is too.
You know, I know people that are very, very sick, and for whatever reason, the marijuana really helps them.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Well, Donald, it looks like Joe Biden agrees with you. Despite 2/3 of Americans supporting marijuana legalization, neither candidate for president seems to think it's a good idea. What else is a good idea? Well, low-dose THC apparently is awesome for all kinds of medical uses, according to the Israeli company and scientists, as well as the doctor on our latest episode of Cannabis Helps Dementia. Dr. Bone from Florida talks about low dose as well as educating and access. Who's in?
I'm all in. This is the time to go all in on cannabis.
Yeah, well, you guess what?
Yes,
You're getting.
I'm all in. This is the time to go all in on cannabis.
I know you're all in there, John Boehner. I know your company is being fined $250,000 per violation in Massachusetts. What's up, Canna family? It's 4 o'clock in California. I'm Dave Conan, and this is Cannabis Saves the World, the show where we get together, talk about the cannabis news, cannabis medicine with blunt commentary, and also new episodes of Cannabis Helps Dementia podcast featuring Coach Chela.
Hello.
Hello. Say a few things, make sure that folks can hear you.
Folks, can you hear me? Cannabis sativa, I hear what you're saying. Still a deadhead issue to most politicians over 45. Right, but we're over 45. But we in the chat understand that this is an issue that is a social justice issue. It is an issue about the environment. Cannabis touches all aspects of our lives.
It does indeed. It does indeed. Your camera looking, I'm sorry, I was distracted.
I'm crooked.
Your camera looks a little, I'm not talking about the crooked. It's the signal's a little
Crooked.
off. I don't know why.
Oh, I see. It's going.
Yeah, it's like you're coming in on a satellite when you're actually right next to me. So
That's okay. I have this very blank wall behind me.
I'm also working with I'm also working with a new laptop computer because we're making the transition, as you can see.
Yes, transition time.
The move is well underway. We are. This is our second to last show here from the mountaintop of Mount Washington, Los Angeles, California.
Right, till we take it on the road.
Until we take it on the road. Next week we will begin. We have one more show next week, next Sunday, if we're going to do one, if it's not an abridged version or whatever it is. But I think we're going to do a show next week because we're leaving on Monday. I think Monday is kind of our goal, right?
Monday is the goal, I think. I mean, we could totally do Tuesday also.
If we had to, yes.
No
indeed.
stress. No stress. That's the key. But yeah, I think as soon as I post the things to let them go, that they'll go.
They'll go. Yes.
Yeah, we got to be ready for that.
We do have to be ready for that. I must say, you're making amazing progress in getting us out of here, and it's exciting to see everything moving to new homes and getting ready for our adventure.
Oh, wow.
First stop, our first destination is Oregon, Gold Beach, Oregon.
Hey, it looks like Cannabis Sativa found an awesome site for us that MDN Niles is telling us about called Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. Woof, USA.
Cool.
WoofUSA.org. Interesting.
Interesting indeed. Sorry, I'm messing with
We
your
are
camera.
one of the good ones over 45. Aw, thank you.
Who said that?
Cannabis sativa.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, or some of the good ones.
Some of the good ones. Old, yes, so, yeah, that's right. It's going to be, what is it? Making the pivot with ease and flow.
Something. Pivot.
Or
Pivot with ease and flow.
your
Revolutionary Road.
follow your dreams with ease and flow.
Yeah.
Revolutionary Road.
But it just looks like follow your dreams.
Right. Yeah, so it's we're excited. We're a little nervous. We're a little scared about the whole thing. But hey, if not now,
Always
when?
come back.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
About many things.
Yeah.
Including this adventure. We don't have we don't have many of the traditional things that people are afraid to lose, like a mortgage.
Well, not only that,
Or
but if
children.
If the film industry were rolling,
Right.
I'd have a job.
Well, and to be determined, as they say in the film industry, as I would say, TBD.
Yes.
Date of return, TBD.
Yeah.
So we're, and as California ain't, Los Angeles ain't exactly COVID clear, as they say.
That's true.
So not necessarily a bad time to spend some time, a little bit of time on the road.
Yes.
Joining,
and we're not
visiting
just
friends
going on the road.
No.
We have destinations. We're, visiting loved ones and family.
We could sleep in our Forester, but that's not the intention.
No.
Except on a camping trip.
Right.
Yes.
And everyone we're visiting has a separate unit for us to quarantine in before we come. So don't worry, we are good.
They're So I'm sure they're not worried. They're going to watch the adventure. It's going to be a
That's
blast.
true.
It's going to be a blast.
That's
but
true.
Listen, we're logistics people. We schedule things. We plan things. That's sort of what our forte is in many areas. And we have a plan. Often we don't have a plan throughout our lifetime.
It's a loose plan.
But it's a loose plan, often loose plans. And, that's very Zen. I said I wanted to be Zen, and that's very Zen. And quite often, as Alan Watts says, we make all these plans, we get all stressed and frustrated and, anxious about making plans and planning and then we can't make a decision. And then the very last minute, we make a split decision and it works out one way or the other. And so ultimately, go with your gut and look for the adventure and the fun and the joy and the ease, flow, and the joy and fun. That was the other names we were thinking of. Joy and fun.
Joy and fun, yes.
Joy and fun, yes. That was another possible iteration. But we don't have our costumes yet, so we can't like switch over to our new characters. We haven't created our personas yet, so we don't know what that's going to be. Or if it's just going to be us, aka
us,
ease and flow.
Right, us, aka ease and flow.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if I aspired to the nickname of Flow.
Right.
It really would. You kind of are ease, except for when you're not.
Except for when I'm not, and you're flow, except when you're not.
Yeah, I'm pretty go with the flowy.
Totally.
Go with the flow and enjoy the show. Speaking of show.
This is the show.
Tell us about the show.
This show coming up right now. The show we're on right now.
The show we're in the moment.
In the 408 hour.
Yeah.
Coming
my
up,
hair looks so weird. I'm just noticing.
Well, did you want to talk about your hair plans with Jocelyn Russell and MDM Niles? Thank you for joining us. Cannabis Sativa. Mr. Sativa's in the house.
Yeah.
Mad Goat is here.
Nice.
Ellen Blasey is here.
420 Fred just popped in. Hello.
Jocelyn Russell says, yeah, but it's not 420 yet. I just finished watching Betsy DeVos on kids going back to school. I need at least 5 more joints before I can understand what she said. I'm not sure about that plan. I'm not sure about that school plan. And a lot of the schools aren't either. LAUSD is not interested in going back.
The teachers don't want to die teaching kids. I think now's the time for teachers to push for everything they ever wanted.
Everybody. It's not just teachers.
Yeah.
Barring some other October surprise, way things are going, Biden's going to sweep into this office, and no thanks to us. But he's going to probably win. Could win an electoral landslide if this Corona situation continues to deteriorate. It's unfortunate that it wouldn't be Bernie Sanders sweeping easily into office, because then we'd get Medicare for all.
And cannabis
after
off the
that.
Schedule 1.
And cannabis legalized and off the Schedule 1. Because guess what, folks? Since we're talking a little, we've sort of segued. I've gone ahead and segued into the news a little bit, the headlines at least of what we're talking about this week. Why did my thing go away? Stand by. But essentially, we have two presidential candidates in the running for office on the November election that are not really interested in legalizing cannabis. Despite the fact, according to Newsweek this week, 2/3 of Americans support marijuana legalization. You've heard reported on this show many Sundays that that's the latest number. In every poll, whether it's Fox or anyone. But Biden and Trump don't want legalization. What is going on? Of course, all of the media picked it up. Atlantic picked it up right away and had a good coverage of it. Marijuana super weapon. Biden refuses to use. Legalizing marijuana is extremely popular, so why won't Joe Biden embrace the idea? Biden task force, the task force, Bernie and Biden task force. What a joke. No Medicare for all in a pandemic and no legal cannabis. States' rights approach. Who else has a states' rights approach to cannabis? Oh yeah, Trump.
The one who's in there now.
The one that's in the open we've played for a year and a half, saying, or almost 2 years now, saying that he's a states' rights person.
I think we've been playing that for ever.
The entire time he's been in.
Since the beginning.
Yes, certainly.
Since the beginning of the show. That's been the opening.
So,
Le show.
the nation, why won't Democrats just come out for legalizing marijuana? The Democrats are for legalizing marijuana. The Pennsylvania Democrats this week, the state Democrats are urging the state to legalize marijuana. All the Democrats that were running, vast majority of them were on the stage running for president, were for legalization, but not Biden. Not Biden, and he's our guy. So that is the national political cannabis news. We've been, it's just so disappointing that we had a candidate who was going to deschedule, take it off the schedule day one, entering office, and the one we're going to get, and it's probably going to end up in office, is wants marijuana users to get mandatory drug rehab, not arrest, but drug rehab, and not for legalization, which has happened in 33 and will be more this year. More states are going to go this year because the ballot initiatives and the signature gathering has continued in the states that are looking for medical. I mean, we reported last week that Nebraska is moving into medical. Idaho is getting the go-ahead, looking to collect online ballots this week. So and of course, author of the crime bill, author of, basically the architect of mass incarceration and 3 strikes and the whole
Ruined
reason.
women's lives working.
Oh yeah, on that.
Anita Hill.
Oh yeah, there's that part. I was just referring to the drug war.
I know. That's more personal to me.
So we're, this is not, obviously it's not going to be a debate topic. Not going to come up if there are any debates between the two cognitive challenged presidents. Trump taking the lead on that one, challenging Biden to a mini mental exam off, apparently, on the debate stage.
I would love that. I'd actually really like to see that.
Is this a zebra or a giraffe?
Draw a clock.
Have them both draw a clock. I think that's a great idea.
Draw a clock and do the 3 words.
3 words, right?
Ask
Start
them
it
a
at the beginning
question.
of the debate and then ask them at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fucking do it.
So, yeah, I think that's
Do
a great
it.
idea. The first debate should be a mini mental state exam. The debate moderator should be a couple of psychiatrists.
Yes,
Or
yes.
geriatric psychiatrists.
Yes.
Right next to Anderson Cooper or whatever. And it's like, we'll have the Canadian mini mental over here and the American mini mental over here. And it'll be Mr. President Trump. Remember these 3 words: apple, pen, orangutan. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to mention your father. But no, yeah, that's so. Yeah, so you think cannabis is going to be on the table? I don't think it's going to be on the table. Now, Trump could grab it. Trump could grab the issue. Don't put it past him.
Surprise.
Don't put it past him to take the issue and run with it. That might. He already jumped in on. What was it this week? That they're pretty savvy at picking up on his gaffes and his missteps. But Trump out-lefting Biden already on so many issues. I wouldn't put it past him to try to out-left him on something like this, especially if Lev Parnev ever gets his ear. Because we know let Lev speak. We knew he was talking about cannabis. Roger Stone's off the hook. He's a big cannabis guy. Maybe Roger will talk to him. Maybe Roger will go, hey, Donald.
Whatever
you really want to put it to Donald? Let's legalize or rather to Biden, let's legalize cannabis. So that's Biden. That's the Biden news, the presidential news about basically we have no one fighting for cannabis in the headed for the Oval Office. No, which is unfortunate.
Well, no, it means we have to get a supermajority that is for it. That's veto proof.
Right, and I'm sure if the VP is Harris, as being discussed, I don't even know Susan Rice's position on cannabis. I haven't checked into that. But we know Harris laughs about it, locked people up like crazy for low-level cannabis and, while AG as far as
she
cases.
would, I think, move him to the better direction in cannabis if it were Harris.
Well, I think she's more politically in tune to the barometer of the nation.
Yeah.
So I think that would, if that is the choice, it will be hypocrisy on her part, for certainly.
I'll take it, whatever it takes.
But and on top of that, old Beauregard is looking for a Senate seat again.
Beauregard.
So we're gonna
Sit down,
good thing
Uncle.
we held on to that video, that good people do not smoke marijuana video, because old Beauregard is looking for a Senate seat again. So people. It's like all of a sudden in the upside down, our cannabis it seems like our cannabis fight might, it's like the hero's journey for cannabis, where when all seems lost, we shall see what the giant bud, the giant cola yielding plant. But I'll tell you, it's this, politics we may be stalled a little bit, at least on a national level. Statewide, it's moving forward. The states will enact more cannabis. So if we're looking if they're going to defer to the states, okay, we'll do it. We will take care of it, because the licenses are going, the initiatives, the ballots, the signatures are happening. Nebraska, Idaho, places you would never expect cannabis to be on a ballot, is moving forward. We've got psilocybin legalization and stuff happening all over, and we're going to talk more about that in the headlines after our episode of Cannabis Helps Dementia. But our other big headline this week, with regards to medical cannabis, because all cannabis uses medical. It's anxiety, baby, relaxation.
If
sleep.
a thing is a medicine intrinsically, all use is medicine. You can't say it's cake if it's medicine. It's not possible.
We know that Israel is doing quite the amount of research on the wonderful plant, and they continue to amaze. We've, of course, seen more news this week about, or last week, about cannabis and dementia being studied in Israel. This week, a new story coming out of Times of Israel: medical marijuana best taken in micro doses with no high. Israeli firm says product still delivers effective pain relief when taken in tiny quantities, making microdosing the best option as it eliminates side effects, claims the company Syqe Medical. So we have heard that many times over the weeks now on the Cannabis Helps Dementia
Smoke weed every day.
Oh, and there we are,
It's
folks.
time.
It is 4:20 on the West Coast. Time to spark up. If you are so inclined, we are enjoying, and will enjoy during the podcast, perhaps, a little Malawi Blue from some friends, medicinally activating our cannabis receptors. This Sunday, fine Sunday afternoon. Happy 420, everybody. But yeah, more science news coming out of Israel, which validates much of what we've heard from many of the doctors and nurses we have been speaking to with regards to cannabis medicine, not just for dementia. And of course, when we speak of that, we really speak of a collection of symptoms which make up a diagnosis of dementia as well as brain failure, because the science is leading, but still out there as to whether or not we are preventing or helping to reverse dementia or any types of dementia with cannabis. But certainly the treatment of its symptoms is something that we hear about and see every week on the Cannabis Helps Dementia podcast. And low dose being some of the most effective uses of the medicine. I mean, we are going to hear this week about, and I've heard over the weeks, starting at 1 milligram going up to find the perfect dose, and that low doses do really well. You've been hearing that, Chela, right? From
Absolutely,
many of the
especially in this
professionals?
population. In people who are over 50, it seems like you need less, which is great. That's awesome. I'm going to start experimenting with that.
We've reported that even in the recreational adult use market, studies are showing that the people are just, it's all marketing when you're paying for super high levels of THC in your flower, when you could you could be getting just as high with something a little less expensive, because you're saturating their receptors at some point and you're just not going to get any higher. That's my theory. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but we know that.
But you are someone who gets high.
I am someone who gets high, who often enjoys a receptor reset, which helps you, get your tolerance back down and that kind of thing. But the good thing about that is, in the medicinal view, we've heard from doctors, is that once you get past that side effect, that bad side effect of being high,
of euphoria,
yeah, that one. Of euphoria.
Some people do get paranoia. Their heart beats fast.
Right. Your senses are more aware, which would be, some people call that paranoid.
Yes, some people do experience paranoia, like the Stephen Barbieri with the shadow
on
guy.
THC. Yep. And some dementia patients, we've heard that with higher levels of THC, without the balance of CBD in there. But low dose, start low, go slow is, we've always heard it. And really that looks like, for medicinal purposes, that's really where you want to go to start. It's economical, better, because you can, you use a ratioed product that you can get over the counter in a licensed shop here in California, or pretty much any of your licensed shops across the state. I mean, state laws vary in what's available.
Not available in New Jersey.
Who is it that I just said is going to be legalizing edibles in a second? I just said it. It's in the news earlier.
You did. You just said it.
Somebody is. But like in Florida.
Virginia just did something, and it was Small Tubes who told me. Small Tubes told me we just went medical and decrimmed in Virginia.
Virginia, that's right. That's good news. He signed it, right? Yep. Fantastico.
Bravo.
It's happening despite the federal feet dragging.
But there's
which
still
is not
tyranny,
surprising.
of course.
Oh, the tyranny of the lists are there. Ohio has a new list this week, added some new left anxiety off, but you got coaxia, whatever that is. I don't know.
It's wasting.
What is
it's
it?
Wasting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a bad thing. But Alzheimer's is on the list in Ohio.
Yeah, but you have caxia at the end of wasting.
At the end of Alzheimer's. But if Alzheimer's is on the list, there's doctors are very uneducated, but the ones that are educated are very creative, and they know, they work within the laws of their states, as you'll hear in the podcast from awesome Dr. Bone from Florida, one of the preeminent doctors and cannabis educators in Florida, is our guest this week on Cannabis Helps Dementia podcast, which we are going to start in just a few minutes here.
I love that she's a women's health specialist as well, and knows a lot about how cannabis interacts differently in women and men, and that was interesting too.
The debate we're going to, Chela, as you recommended that we should have a panel with many of these doctors that we now have been interviewing, because we are having this East Coast, West Coast debate on many of the uses and dosages, methods of delivery, which are called
form factors.
Form factors. Thank you. You learn something every day. You learn something every day on these podcasts and talking to doctors. You're going to learn on this one coming up about some of the challenges to research and education in Florida and access, as well as the whole talk about starting low with THC, that you can get amazing benefits with low doses of THC without getting the side effects that many people are afraid of. Many of the seniors, many who have used cannabis before, but for the majority of those that haven't, are, they've heard the horror stories of all the propaganda that they've been taught over the years. I think I was watching some Joe Rogan stand up this week, and he does a lot of cannabis stuff, of course. But he was talking about, what do people think when you're getting high? You're elevated. That's what you're at. That's all. You're not stoned. You're elevated. You're more, so people that haven't used cannabis are the ones that really need to try it. So at least they know what they're talking about. But I digress. But the thing is, those side effects you can not have, because you can start so low until you find the benefit. Or the other benefit of starting low is that you titrate up so that those side effects don't come on right away. You build up that tolerance. And that's basically what happens, is you build up. If you keep using a certain dosage over time, you will build a tolerance to that THC. And those quote, negative side effects will drop away, but the positive benefits of the molecules will continue. So that's another reason to titrate up. So lots of great information every week. We are just blown away with the interviews that we get for the podcast, and every doctor we talk to adds more to our information base of how cannabis helps dementia and how we can get the information out, the education to doctors as well as caregivers and people living with dementia that can access it, and if they can't access it, to get it accessible where they are in whatever state they're in, which is going to happen faster than it will federally, at least for the foreseeable future, until something drastically changes. But Biden has just put out his platform, and nowhere to be seen is cannabis medicine.
Lame.
Legalization. So, as well as Medicare for all, in the middle of the pandemic.
So lame. Oh, God, I can't.
So,
shall we focus on something
I
we
think,
like?
well, we are. We're gonna play the new podcast right now.
I
We're
love
coming up
that.
at 4:30. We're gonna. This is episode 13, guys.
Lucky 13. Thank you.
Wait, too soon.
Too soon?
Hit the button too soon.
Why?
Well, I just want to make sure people know where to go when they are looking to download, rate, and review the podcast.
Review us on iTunes.
Please. If you haven't yet, go over to Cannabis Helps Dementia. Go to the anchor.fm/Cannabis Helps Dementia. Find the Apple button that takes you to Apple iTunes. Open it up in iTunes. Give us a rate and review, because that'll get the algorithm churning away and get more people to hear the podcast. You can also listen on Spotify, so you can get from there as well. So wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find Cannabis Helps Dementia, but you can go over to anchor.fm/Cannabis Helps Dementia. Leave us a message. You can support the show there monthly. You can support the show here on YouTube too, with super chats while we're live, which is kind of exciting. If you're so inclined. But we just want you to share the show, share the information, as we always have. We'd really appreciate that. Subscribe, like, share the knowledge, share the education. Let people know that cannabis helps dementia and that cannabis saves the world. So many things in so many ways, and so many good things about that in the news this week, which we are going to talk about after this episode of Cannabis Helps Dementia, featuring Dr. Melanie Bone. Amazing cannabis doctor from Florida. This is an amazing interview. We hope you enjoy it. We'll see you on the other side.
to get wise. Get up and get out. Get rid of that frown that's been dragging you down, and get up in the air. Just pretend that you can fly. You'll never know if you can till you try.
Hi, and welcome to Cannabis Helps Dementia. I'm Chela.
I'm Dave. And right up front, we'd like to say that we're not doctors or medical professionals, and nothing you hear in this podcast should be considered medical advice.
Right.
We're not experts, but throughout this podcast series, you'll hear from doctors, nurses, research scientists, administrators, other caregivers, and people living with dementia about how cannabis helps.
Like it did for our family.
That's right.
After my mom was diagnosed with dementia, we were thrust into family caregiving and became fierce advocates for people living with dementia,
Including their access to cannabis medicine.
In this episode, we're talking with Dr. Melanie Bone in Florida.
Dr. Bone is a board-certified OBGYN with 30 years of personal experience in women's healthcare. She started a medical cannabis practice in 2016, treating women, men, and children. Dr. Bone has a unique background as a cancer survivor, a mother of 5 children, public speaker, and a women's healthcare advocate.
Educating others is key to Dr. Bone's belief about the importance of involving patients in their own care. By studying, researching, and then sharing her knowledge, she builds networks of information exchange that make innovation in healthcare possible. This attitude informs the way Dr. Bone practices medicine.
We first learned about Dr. Bone's work through an article that Abby Rosner wrote in Forbes about Morse Life, a West Palm Beach, Florida senior health services organization doing incredible work breaking the stigma around cannabis medicine through education, research, and clinical practice.
Dr. Bone, I want to thank you so much for being with us today to talk about how cannabis helps dementia. You're a women's health expert and leading the cannabis program at Morse Life. Could you please tell us more about your study at Morse Life?
So Morse Life is a really interesting over 65 community in West Palm Beach, Florida. And the legislature, through the works of a wonderful couple in Palm Beach, the Kesslers, the Kessler Foundation lobbied the state legislature to let a 5-star Gold Seal nursing home, of which there's one in the state of Florida right now, Morse. It has to be a teaching nursing home. So we have nursing students, residents, medical students. And what they want is they wanted to give leeway to have more examination of cannabinoids for diagnoses and for health and wellness, I believe.
That's awesome.
And toward that end, they were able to get the legislature to grant permission for a caregiver at Morse Life to caregive for more than one patient, which there's a one patient, one caregiver rule in the state. This is the exception.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. I have to be honest.
Wait, Florida has a one person, one caregiver rule?
Yeah. So when you go to register as a caregiver in the registry, if I assign you, you're a caregiver for your mother, you can't then go and be a caregiver for your sister or your father.
Wow.
I mean, it's and the same thing. A nurse who's working in a facility could be identified as a caregiver for a patient, but they won't let that nurse then be a caregiver for another patient at the same time.
Tyranny.
So, well, the problem is, if you want to bring cannabinoids into a facility that accepts CMS dollars, you need to be certain that there's a way to do that that's ethical, legal, and acceptable to the people receiving the medication and the people dispensing the medication. So one huge hurdle, as I'm sure you're aware of, is that nurses who may be paid with money from Medicare, Medicaid can't touch cannabis. So we just tried to create very, very creative solutions. But the best thing would be to blow it through at the level of the legislature and say, listen, these people's daughter couldn't come in 3 times a day to dispense cannabis, and this patient needs it 3 times a day. Mm-hmm. So if you give us permission to, and there's multiple approaches we've taken to work on this, but if you give permission to somehow delegate it to the authority of somebody like me or people who work for me, then that would be really great.
So now you're doing this study at Morse Life. since October.
Right. So it's a study. It's not your classic IRB study where we are going to have a double-blinded, randomized prospective trial and look at outcomes for cannabis in dementia. The whole initial part of the study, as I'm now approaching NIH, working in conjunction, we hope, with Nova Southeastern University here. We're in talks with their dean to use possibly their IRB to move forward. And the concept is we could go that direction, but I don't know how much you know about NIH studies. To even qualify for an NIH study, you kind of have already had to do the study and submit that as a pre-study to then get the study passed. There's a lot of background work. So we're doing a lot of the background work so that we have a more cogent application. Mm-hmm. So for example, I wanted to apply just fresh out, and they said, well, you may have been a doctor for 30 years and you may have practiced this for years and understand it. But the NIH kind of has this thing where you need to be backed by somebody who's already been approved up for an NIH study because it's so complicated to apply and then follow up, etc. So a lot of what we're doing now is legwork, but there's two kind of ideas. Certainly, we're looking at different ailments, dementia being a diagnosis, but we're also looking at things like depression and anxiety, which are now becoming huge. And maybe in the not yet diagnosed dementia patient or the very early dementia patient, those ones will certainly come into the study. And we're now at the point, our next step is we're reaching out to 40,000 households that are touched by Morse and part of the extended reach Morse so that we can draw more people in with these ailments to participate.
That's a very large pool.
Well, it's a large pool. Who knows how many will really respond? I'm always the realist. I'd love to be the optimist, but I'd rather be the realist and over deliver. The thing about it is, at Morse, they have an amazing reputation and they've done so well with COVID compared to anybody else in the state, pretty much. That's a nursing facility. And therefore, we have trouble even navigating in Morse right now. They're very strict. You can only go to this unit, this unit, this unit. We're tested every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And so some of what we're doing is like going backward for a little while in order to go forward. So we said, okay, we're going to start reaching outside of the 4 walls while COVID is in place. Our intention is to continue to do so much, but these are all lives that are touched by Morse and part of Morse outreach and eventually may become permanent residents within the 4 walls because they have a really cool program here where they take seniors in the community and who need help but don't want to reside or can't reside at a main facility, and they've now partnered with synagogues. And before peak of COVID, these people would spend and have the equivalent of a daycare at synagogues in the county where we would continue to have outreach. Those people had medical care delivered through Morse and had doctors through Morse. So inventive, creative ways to get more people involved in what we're looking at. And so what we're looking at is there's a group that's very interested in seeing THC as part of what we're doing. So the outside communities will probably be a better way to initiate that until we resolve all the issues.
Because of federal funding.
Yeah, until we do it. Right now we're having consideration of what we call a marijuana fairy, right? Somebody who could dispense marijuana, but that depends completely on making sure that we can get the caregiver dispensation from the law implemented correctly. And that's what we're working on.
Are you having trouble recruiting people? Is that what I'm hearing?
I wouldn't say we're having trouble recruiting. I think we have more obstacles than I initially anticipated, but I'm always up to a challenge and I'm getting better at it. I think, as a doctor, it's kind of funny. You're brought up to obey the rules.
Yeah.
and the law.
Yeah.
And over time, you start to realize, well, we need to push to change things in the law when it doesn't best suit our patients.
Yeah.
And we need to have the right avenues to do so, which means we need to enlist the help of people that we've always kind of had an adversarial relationship with, the lawyers. But so it's interesting, you learn to navigate a new territory. But I think we're in a really good position. The people I'm working with are wonderful, and I do anticipate that within the four walls, the enrollment will go up when we break through that one problem. I will say, memory care, we have the best and independent living. So memory care, we can only use CBD products, but
Why?
we do because, again,
federal funding.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
All right. But we have a lot of memory care patients, and funny, when you had Eloise Teason-Wright on your podcast, she brought something up which I think is true, and we see it. So we find that in some ways, if I had to predict, and I'm just looking at my little sort of the future mirror, is that maybe being able to add the THC will be very important for the women. I think we have a better handle on calming down the men with CBD. And the women I see are a little more resistant to the impact. And it's just something I've kind of noticed. I can't say maybe it's just a trend right now, but it's something I'd be interested, of course, since I always think about the biochemistry of the female brain versus the male brain.
So yeah, the debate of whether men or women have more receptors or not, we heard that in one interview, and how it affects it differently. There was an article this week about how men react more, but we've heard that women, like with CBD,
so it's really
women
interesting.
and men react differently.
Right.
They do. And then women who are of reproductive age versus postmenopause. And then I would love to look at this issue eventually. Well, if you take a postmenopausal woman and you have her on hormones, does she react more like a premenopausal woman or a postmenopausal woman, or something somewhere in the middle?
I know someone who could get in that study.
I'd love to be part of that study.
Right.
I could not have gotten through menopause without cannabis. For sure.
I mean, I wish I could tell you the mechanism of action. I'm asked that a lot, but I would say, yes, there are many, many women for whom cannabis is a nice way to help them through some of the complaints of menopause.
So theoretically, do you think that menopausal changes plus endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome could help explain the increased risk of women for Alzheimer's dementia?
I would love to look at that because I wonder. I mean, one way to look at it is to go back and look through the data on estrogen replacement and dementia, which is all over the place depending on who you read. But again, only anecdotal, and we know in medicine anecdotal doesn't really count for much. But 30 years as a gynecologist, I can't recall a person where I put them on estrogen and I saw a decline in cognition. Now, a long run, maybe, but then that would be hard to tease out from other reasons for declining cognition. But I certainly see a lot of people who tell me that they feel they're functioning at a higher level in terms of thinking processes, executive function, etc., on estrogen than off estrogen. So it makes great sense when you look at the data on CBD and biochemistry in the brain in terms of maybe neuroprotective events and what cannabinoids can do. It makes logical sense in my brain that the two together would be great. And we know they interact because they upregulate and downregulate one another, estrogen and the endocannabinoid system. It's fascinating. So I think the future is very bright for that.
Yeah, if we could get the feds off our necks so we could actually do the research,
Yes, but am I not right that somewhere in a bill that was being run through the legislature right now in Congress, there's something about allowing doctors who are doing studies to use what's locally available? Right. So we knew they were going to pull it out,
Yeah.
but maybe something like that will go back through again.
Not with the two top contenders running for president right now.
But that's another show.
Currently, yeah, that's a different show.
Different show.
But okay, back to this show. Hey, why don't you tell us about some of your patients that are living with dementia and maybe how cannabis therapeutics have improved or changed their quality of life?
So great. There's one person comes right to mind. So this is a gentleman, just great physical shape. And this is something I noticed that also with some of my Alzheimer's patients, maybe because they're restless and they move around a lot, their bodies are in very good shape, very good musculature, and not as much high blood pressure and other meds as I would have thought. But this gentleman married to a dentist, and she had tried to keep him at home for as long as she could. And then she ended up, like you, saying, I need the help of a community. She, long and short, he got asked to leave multiple facilities because what his brain wanted to do was walk. And he would walk as many as 16 miles a day. And the problem was if you tried to shut the door, he would just break through the door. And so she ended up having to hire people just to walk with him all day.
Sure.
Okay. So she brings him to me. She goes, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't have much thoughts. Well, we tried CBD with low THC initially to see if it would have a calming effect. Didn't do much for him. We started increasing. When we got to a dose of somewhere between 15 and 20 milligrams of THC, he became completely docile. And he stopped trying to leave the house to go for a walk.
Wow.
And
how many
actually,
times a day? I'm sorry.
She has him on, I would say, about 3 times a day.
Okay.
And this is just her hemp-based CBD with 0.3 THC.
No. This gentleman is on high THC.
Oh, okay.
15, 20 milligrams THC.
15, 20 milligrams 3 times a day. And actually, at one point, we had to back him off because of 2 things. One, he got a little, she says it's almost like he's too quiet. And also the oil was upsetting his tummy. So we've been working with different form factors. And, it's just, is it perfect? Well, I bring it up because I never like people to believe that I'm a cannabis evangelist. I really believe when it works incredibly well. But I think you have to be cautious. And you have to understand that there's always a compromise. So we got him to a fabulous place in terms of activity. And now we're dealing with some of the other side effects, and we're dealing with form factors. Form factors, to me, with dementia patients are a huge issue. And I've heard you talk about it on other podcasts. And, as I think Dr. Tischer said, you end up resorting to the gummy because the gummy seems to be the lowest hanging fruit. We don't even have gummies or edibles in the state of Florida. So,
right. Yeah. How is that challenge? What what exactly are you
form
using?
factors?
How are you dosing?
We end up using capsules, pills. We end up adding tinctures to food and beverage and converting them into orals. And recently, it's kind of exciting. They just came out with 2 new products in Florida, which when we can start delivering the THC more easily, they have powder and they have drops. So 1 drop is 1 milligram in powder. A scoop is 5 milligrams. Now, those form factors are wonderful for my independent living people because they like control. I think control while you're going through the initial stages of losing control is very important. So I like to give them back the control and help guide them and say, today, how do you feel? You could modify your dose down or up a little, depending. I don't love the idea of not do it one day, do it another day. I like something in the endocannabinoid system on a regular basis, but it could be titrated up or down based on how the patient felt.
Yeah. Wow. So for older people, especially, what do you think cannabinoid medicine is best for?
So it's funny because the three things that I think we tend to treat the most, which everybody else has: chronic pain, anxiety/depression, insomnia, they are not in the diagnoses that are approved of in the state of Florida for cannabis. Right? So I don't know if you knew that. But in Florida, the diagnoses are things like Parkinson's, cancer, HIV/AIDS, Crohn's disease. I mean, some of them I'm like, well, if you're going to improve Crohn's, why wouldn't you improve arthritis? But there is a chronic pain, and everybody comes in and they talk about their chronic pain, and I know they're in pain, but I show them that the fine print under the chronic pain diagnosis says pain that has arisen from one of the other diagnoses, but lasts after that diagnosis goes away. So, right? So a good example, and the one I use it the most commonly for, is cancer. So you had cancer treatments, you're left with chronic neuropathic pain or whatever. Then you have to check the box. So if you check chronic pain, you have to check the other box. Why? So we used to say, if you had arthritis, before they demanded that, we'd say, like MS and chronic pain, right? And now you can't do that anymore, because if you need to be honest with the government. You can't say that the patient has a diagnosis they don't have, but you can now say our most common thing, especially for early dementia patients, anxiety. Well, what is anxiety like? Anxiety is like PTSD. Now, they haven't had formal testing that would give them the PTSD diagnosis at the level that the state would require it, just to check that box. So then we have to send to the state journal articles of why we feel that this disease would then respond to cannabinoid medicine. So the top three things we treat, we have to send letters to the state. So for a long time, we actually had to physically mail a letter. I always wonder where those letters went, And now we have to upload it.
Because you don't have enough to do.
Well, at the moment, we're in the early stages, right? We have to
educate them.
Well, we're not in the early stages really here in California, and you still, Dr. Sherry Afai was saying, they have to register, to be a patient in California, you have to register with the state. She says, what other drug do people have to register as a patient in the state to get the benefits of medicine?
Well, that's funny you say that, because every patient we see, we must query the state database on other drug use, narcotics, sleepers, benzos, right? And you have to look at that. Now, is that going to change whether you're going to give them cannabis? And I understand the theory. You want to be mindful of someone that's getting a lot of meds another way. But, and for the safety of the patient, I understand. But on the other hand, I can give someone a narcotic, but I don't have to register them for the narcotic. And the government knows they're getting the narcotic, right? Well, the government knows who's getting cannabis, how much they're getting, where they're getting it, when they're getting it. They have all that data. It's big data.
Yeah, big data. Exactly. And it's big pharma preventing just general access, I think. They've got the pipeline, and they don't want anybody else involved in that pipeline, especially something that you can talk to a patient and say, oh yeah, here, just do it yourself. Add a little bit more THC, what other drug, or, innocuous, something that's going to help benefit someone so much that can you tell someone to do that? You can't say, oh, just add a few more add some more Vicodin or,
Vicodin. So it's funny you say that, because one of my issues with seniors that I see is they're so used to paternalistic and prescriptive physicians that when you say to them, it's okay, you can go up a little bit if you don't have any negative side effects and you're not getting as much response as you would like, they won't do it. They want a visit, an approval, and to be told. So I was trying to explain, I really believe that seniors need to be subdivided now into categories, because truthfully, and of course there's exceptions. I don't ever want to be said that I'm generalizing so much, but in the 65 to 75-year-old crowd, they used cannabis, a lot of them, when they were in college, and they're like more facile, more comfortable with that concept. Over 75, over 80, and definitely over 85, it is another type of medicine. And we need to maybe distinguish that.
How do we convince people who have strong bias against cannabis medicine because of that racist drug policy propaganda to try cannabis therapeutics? How do we break through that?
Well, let me tell you, it's what we do every day as cannabis physicians. It's education, 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 more education. And I'll tell you the way we do it. And this I completely disagree with. Yes, again, someone who said they started at a 5 milligram dose. I think that's a ridiculous place to start, especially with an over 65. The best argument I ever heard for doing it is you don't want them to build tolerance, and slowly increasing the dose may build their tolerance and kind of bite you in the butt later. I don't even believe that, though, really. Mm-hmm. So my theory is key to doing this is to tell them you're going to give them something, close follow-up, like almost daily or every other day calls, and have it do nothing initially. Mm-hmm. I always tell this, I really want to hear you say it didn't do anything.
Right.
But not for too long, just for long enough that their fear goes away. Once you can get a handle on their fear, then you start looking for efficacy. And educating them that that's a huge part of initiation of cannabis is take away the fear first, then look to get effect.
So what is your starting dose?
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
I start often as low as 1 milligram.
Yeah.
Maybe 2. But I see people who occasionally on 1 milligram, they're good. Yeah. I think we really don't appreciate the value of microdosing. I think microdosing has huge value. Like you were saying, what are you looking to treat most commonly? Well, I want to look at the benefits for long-term health and wellness. And I think those benefits you start seeing at the very, very low dosages, just for daily stress. I mean, imagine instead of taking a compressed hard vitamin, which has been shown to do nothing, the Institute of Medicine came out with a great study that shows multivitamins are useless. Okay, so why don't you repurpose the concept of the multivitamin for the concept of the daily cannabinoid stabilizing?
Oh, now you're just talking craziness.
But I'm not crazy. But
I love it. Of course not.
Yeah, no, that's something we've always wanted.
I predict we'll get there, but they'll be microdosed just because listen. I sent a child away one day to be in the woods. I have my 5 kids. This one just used cannabis so much that life started falling apart. Mm-hmm. And I still have trouble with that concept that you should give someone an unlimited amount of THC. Mm. I understand we don't like to limit people, especially in this country. But I know of no other medicine where you would say, gosh, you can take as much of this psychoactive medication as you want, and I'm not going to restrict you. And if you look in the registry in Florida, there are doctors who write for over 15,000 milligrams of THC a day. Actually, you can put in the sign for infinity.
Wow.
All right. So why do we get the negative pushback? Well, okay, when you have stuff like that, I actually listened to a hearing that was 5 hours long about dosing guidelines in our state legislature. And who did they have listening to it? They had one doctor who was in the trenches, anesthesiologist, pain management physician, who said, most of my patients are using 40 milligrams or less. I mean, there are times when we have to go up higher. I think he said, I don't have anybody who uses more than 300, and that would be outrageous amount in my practice. And then you had a patient, a CMO of a dispensary, and a number of other osteopathic physicians. And I mean, definitely very intelligent people. And their argument was, you don't know, you don't get into people's bodies. They may need 1,500 milligrams a day, especially if they're doing one of the RSO regimens to combat a brain tumor, for example. Okay, so my answer to that is, okay, there has to be a way you could write a letter to the state for a dispensation for those people who need to go above and beyond.
It's not a lot of people fighting, brain tumors using RSO. I would think it's
okay. Yeah. Or if you have somebody who, for whatever reason, needs a huge amount, their receptors are very resistant, they have incredible tolerance. Okay.
And you still don't have smoke cannabis in Florida, right? Or do you?
We
now?
do.
You do.
We do. But so my thought is, what I think you need to have guidelines and you need to have some regulation, and there just seems to be a huge pushback against that. And I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just saying, if you want to get the respect of certain members of our community and of our legislature, our government, who will have power to enact things to benefit you, then don't come across as outrageous, come across as reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a one milligram is certainly reasonable to start.
Well, it's super reasonable. I mean, just like you were saying, Nurse Thiessen was saying, such low dosing is really helpful. And, Dr. Tischler and, lots of people are saying in their practice that low doses are really, really effective. Dr. Sulak also uses that, erase the fear model. Start with super low dose so that they don't feel anything for a few days, and then go up gradually, because it's that fear, because the propaganda is so strong. Right. And
getting rid of the fear, I think that would be a great nationwide campaign. And I think, I know everybody's pushing to legalize, but at the same time, we need to educate. Because, you go into local dispensaries now and they'll have a handful of ratio products, which I don't think ratio products should ever go away. I think those are incredibly valuable and medicinal. And then they have 3 times as much high THC, and the options, I'm not being prejudiced, but I say to myself, okay, so who needs hash, shatter, bubble? For what? I guess chronic pain, maybe. But I would think that if you surveyed most practitioners, they would say that's maybe more legal adult use than medical. I don't know how you can gauge your dose particularly well that way.
Right. It's cannabis is such a complicated plant, especially when it regards to medicine versus recreation and legalization, adult use, the push for legalization, the hurt that does overall for patients in all of the states that it's happened, as well as this, the articles that just came out, the studies that say you're throwing your money away with the high THC stuff anyway, because it's not as effective. You get just as high with a lower THC than you do on a higher THC
for recreational or adult use.
Yeah,
I think that's a very important point, because you definitely see patients who say, "Oh, I need more THC. I know I'm going to need more." And I say, "No, you don't really know you're going to need more until you start." And we have to overcome fear both ways. I'm never going to make it so that you can't get what you need, but to just give you carte blanche, which honestly, that's how most practitioners work. And it's backfiring. It's giving us a bad name. You know, I would tell you that a lot of clinics here, they see patients, and I've had patients come from certain other physicians and clinics and say, they were nice, they did everything right, but I want more education. I want more back and forth with the doctor who won't nickel and dime me every time I want to call them. And there are just some people need a lot more hand holding than others. And it's one of the problems with one of the arguments is that if we could really introduce cannabinoid health and wellness throughout the seniors in particular, we will ultimately lower the costs for Medicare and Medicaid, because fewer visits to the ER for complaints that might not be there anymore, that maybe
drug costs going
fewer
down.
Drug costs going down. Yeah. And, but on the other side, the amount of initial hand holding and guidance may be much higher.
Well, the propaganda is so strong. You're fighting generations of misinformation.
Yes. I mean, and I thought it was only going to be in certain groups of people.
No.
But, I have young nurses who are just, you can't make me give that to her. And then I say, yes, I really can. It has no THC. It's
well, the
legal in
propaganda
50
is so
states.
strong.
You need
You're
to
fighting
give this to her.
generations.
Well, that's all-
Propaganda is strong.
Initially-
and your law followers.
And many folks, victims of the drug war, who are like, oh, well, that's
Ruined my community.
Ruined my community. We can't be using that here, So there's a lot of baggage that goes along with this incredibly beneficial plant. So it's a challenge for sure. And education, top of the list.
Yeah.
Education of lawmakers as well as doctors. We don't train the doctors enough.
Yes. So toward that end, I started a mentorship program.
Oh, wonderful.
Where if, somebody also mentioned, doctors just want to call me and always pick my brain. And I wish I had all the time in the day in the world to do that. So I said, okay, if you just want a little bit of knowledge, that's one thing, but I can go into depth in that more. And I would say one of my best students is out in Utah and is doing fabulous, and says, you really made a difference in helping me get started, because I now understand so much more. And I think peer-to-peer education is really important, and there are people working on that. But since we're not doing as much education in meeting formats, which is what doctors always tended to run to, we need, I think, the apprenticeship model or the mentorship model is really helpful in these times, and people should do that more across the country. Know what they're doing, help people in their community to know more.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that you're doing that, and all the other work that you're doing in community to spread this education and break down the barriers. So it's not easy to find a healthcare professional with this specialized knowledge. And I did hear that you are taking telehealth patients. Do they have to be in Florida? Can they be anywhere? How can people find you?
I work doing consultations with people many places. I actually have a really interesting, if any of the people listening have this program called 2ndMD, and some big employers use it. I work with 2ndMD to do cannabis consultations for their clientele across the United States with many, many different diagnoses. And although I can consult with anyone, anywhere, what I tell people is, mostly it's important to have someone who's an expert in your particular state, because the laws are so radically different state to state.
The lists of tyranny vary from state to state.
It's true. Like you didn't think there was smokable flower. So in Florida, there is, but you really can't get it the first go out, because you have to send a letter to the state saying that the patient tried X, Y, and Z, and it didn't work as well as they would like. And then
got to be a last resort, always.
Last resort. And, that's another hurdle that we approach in our state. So nobody starts pretty much with smokable flower. And other states like New Jersey, I did one the other day with a gentleman who's got stage 4 cancer in his early 30s. They pretty much only have smokable flower. And they have some hard pills, but they don't have the variety of ratios and the robust terpenes choices. We don't have anything here like people in California have.
Right.
You're still using just a bottle of olive oil infused, and you're not quite sure what's in there.
No,
No?
they know.
Oh, okay.
They know exactly what's in there.
That's what we
It's
started with.
regulated.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. I do want to talk to you at some point about putting the cannabis leaf into your tea. That's a whole area of interest for me.
Yeah,
You mentioned
great.
something. After this, we can talk. I would love to.
That was a Sulak
totally.
tip, I think. Too.
Yeah, Dr. Sulak in Maine, I believe. He does healer.com, which is an education for patients as well as practitioners. And he, I believe, he's a board member of the Society of Cannabis Clinicians. Mentioned just putting a little, just a small, like a pea-size piece of flour in your tea in the morning, and drink that and get some good raw cannabinoids, and that's awesome.
We totally underestimate the value of raw cannabinoids.
Oh yeah, because we haven't done any study on it. It's been hippies and shaman and folks like that who have brought this medicine from the past into the now, and I think the raw cannabinoid use has totally, like you said, been totally lost. And we used to feed we're vegan, but we used to feed animals hemp feed. And it'd be great if we could get back to more hemp-based everything.
Well, you even mentioned hemp microgreens.
We're definitely exploring that. Yes, indeed.
Well, but yeah, I'm working on a project with somebody locally with that. So
tell me more about your hemp microgreen project.
Oh, but I don't want to do it on air. So
okay,
next time.
But that is super exciting.
It's a lot of it is the future, right? I mean, yeah, there's one gentleman I know who's producing. It's already on the market. Hemp microgreens, like you can purchase where you buy your kale and your spinach and leaf lettuce and add it to your salad.
Yeah, I think that is so important for our health, for our lives, for balancing our endocannabinoid system. But what do I know? I'm not a doctor.
Well, Stephen last week. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Stephen was saying last week he uses THCA, which is directly from
raw cannabinoids. And he has CTE dementia.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
See? No, there's so let me tell you that if we could prove that the raw cannabinoids that have no psychoactive effect had the antioxidant properties of psychoactive cannabinoids and medicinal benefits, I think that for those people who have tremendous fear, think of that as the runway into where you want to go. You could always stop there and do that, or from there they could graduate on. Again, education, introduction. But I know there's so many people who won't even try because they don't want to have any psychoactive effect. If they could have access to raw cannabinoids, that'd be tremendous.
Yeah, it would be amazing. How could you get a study like that going?
Not yet. THC, even if it's THCA, it's THC.
It's just the only one that's off the list is Epidiolex.
So we have to deschedule cannabis federally. And that
either
will
deschedule, there's different approaches. Take it out of the scheduling system and do something completely different with it. Deschedule it. The whole next thing to go through. Psilocybin's going through this next, right?
Yes.
And
moving faster. Seems to be moving faster than cannabis ever did.
Yeah. So it is. I hear amazing things about it.
Absolutely. I'm very excited about psilocybin research as well. There's an Israeli group that's combining psilocybin and cannabis for therapeutics. So that's exciting too.
Wow.
And Oregon, of course, on the ballot, November is psilocybin therapy. So it's fantastic. The plant medicine is where it's at. And I think we're going to heal ourselves and the planet with mushrooms and cannabis. Hemp saves the world. Matt, you can imagine, I always say this, imagine where we'd be today if hemp had won over plastic back in the day. Our environment would be a whole different situation. Our health would probably be a whole different situation.
Or paper, right?
Pollution.
Oh, yeah,
the
everything.
plastic wouldn't be polluting the seas.
But now
Hey,
we have to get back there.
We're getting close to the end of our time together, and I want to make sure that we've covered anything that you may want to talk about that we may not have asked you already.
Well, I just think that you're doing an amazing service for people who listen to you. It's great to increase. I actually have a new nurse that's working, and the first I said, I want you to go to Spotify. I want you to listen to their podcast because it is a great educational tool, and getting it before some of the practitioners who are working in the dementia world would be wonderful. Keeping communication between scientists and practitioners, allowing them to share ideas, that's wonderful. And I just think that the whole landscape, by definition of the population and their exposure to cannabis in life, patience, because in 10 years, we're going to be at a completely different place. And, think about when my 20-something-year-old kids are 60-something, and it'll be a non-issue because they will have been exposed to it. So I like
they'll be demanding it. They'll be like, "Where's my cannabis? Wait a minute, where's my vitamins?
Absolutely.
Where's my THCA vitamin?"
Right, and it's kind of the way cancer was. Cancer was, you couldn't talk about it. It was terrible, whatever. And now I think people see cancer as it absolutely can be awful, but they're a little more comfortable even saying the word than let's say my mother was. My mother would just say the C word, right? So I say that now.
The C word is cannabis.
The C word of us, and eventually it's going to be something different when our kids come up the pipes. So time is going to be on our side for this.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Really, thank you so much for being with us and for pioneering this great study at Morse Life. And as it evolves, I do hope to talk to you more about it. And more about how cannabis helps menopausal women, because I think that's super important.
There might be there might be a telehealth call about that coming up.
Hey, that's one of my favorites. Yeah. So thank you for having me and inviting me. This is just a great thing to do. I'm so glad you do it.
Well, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate your support and sending folks to Spotify. This is why we've done this, is that, our journey with Mom, we felt that the education and the knowledge was really lacking in this zone. And since we've been doing this podcast and exploring and talking to more and more doctors, we're so pleased and excited that there are real doctors, real professionals out there that are utilizing cannabis medicine. They're training other doctors, they're training politicians, and that space in Florida, and what you're doing, we can't wait to see how that works. I'm going to follow Morris Life online now that I've found them. We're always looking for places. We only have a handful in California where we have active cannabis programs. So it's really exciting, your work and you're working with.
Yes, and we have multiple facilities that we're working with: New York, Pennsylvania, so Boston. So what's good is hopefully we can come up with an ideal, structure and rollout, and then we can share it with other facilities.
Absolutely. Everybody needs it.
Everybody.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
All right. It's been a pleasure. Cool. And I look forward to email me. I look forward to going over that other stuff with you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. As everything develops in the world and as we all evolve. So yeah, right on. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Stay healthy.
And have a wonderful day, you guys.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, you as well.
All right.
Have a great one.
Wash your hands.
Will do. Bye.
Bye. Okay, cool.
Cool. That's great. Thank you, Dr. Bone.
So the debate continues. what dose to start with in this population, Dr. Bone really advocates for starting with a very, very low dose, as low as 1 milligram, to take away the fear created by generations of propaganda.
Yeah, she doesn't want new patients to feel anything. So for cannabis-weary people, it's brilliant, actually.
Yeah, thanks for joining us for Cannabis Helps Dementia. Be sure to download, rate, and review us on iTunes or your favorite podcasting network.
And please share this podcast with anyone you know in relationship with dementia.
Do you want to tell your story of how cannabis helps dementia? Leave us a voice message at anchor.fm/Cannabis Helps Dementia, or you can drop us a note or connect with us on the socials.
Check out the Society of Cannabis Clinicians website to find real medical professionals familiar with cannabis medicine in your area or online.
Because you remember, we're not doctors, just family caregivers turned advocates.
And don't forget, download, like, and share what you learned. Cannabis helps dementia.
Why don't you get wise? Get up and get out. Get rid of that frown that's been dragging you down, and get up in the air. Just pretend that you can fly. You'll never know if you can till you try. So get out and you're right. Be able and strong. Give vent to that intent you've had pent up for so long. Come on up and see what it's like being out where you're free. Just do something that's real unique. Do something that's new.
Do something that's new. Thanks to Dr. Melanie Bone from Florida. Latest episode of Cannabis Helps Dementia. And lots of other people too. Over there at Morse Life. Dr. Bone working closely with the community of seniors at the only only facility in Florida that uses cannabis-based therapies. The only licensed facility, because I think it's connected to a teaching hospital. Is that what it is?
It's a teaching facility. Babe, the fan's on. I can't turn it off. It's a teaching facility.
Right.
So it's a nursing home, the only Gold Star nursing home in the whole state of Florida, and it's a teaching hospital, which is why I think they're allowing them to use cannabis medicine at the place.
Gotcha.
Whereas no other nursing homes, it sounds like in Florida, use cannabis medicine, federally funded and all.
And still yet only in the memory care, strictly CBD, which is, hey, we are learning more and more, despite the debate, also in that realm, that CBD does look to be beneficial. So Dr. Melanie Bone, who does telemedicine, works with people all over the place, recommends somebody in your own state for the laws, but I'm sure she's certainly willing to consult in other ways. You can go to her website, drmelaniebone.com, Dr. Melanie Bone.
Yeah, and also you can look at the Society of Cannabis Clinicians website. There is a practitioner finder there as well.
What is that?
And
That's
and
what's the website?
In addition to, go ahead and look it up.
Oh.
I
think it's
and then it's always a weird one. I can't remember if it's
I know.
Canna Clinicians. I think it's cannaclinicians.org.
that's there.
But if I typed it in the Google, I would have been able to find it. Anyway, yeah, so you can find a doctor there to help you. You could look up other doctors that we've interviewed.
You are right.
yeah.
It is cannabisclinicians.org.
Cannabisclinicians.org is the Society of Cannabis Clinicians website.
That's right.
And there is a practitioner finder tool there that you can use to find a doctor in your area. And you guys, listen, I know a lot of us who are, watchers of this show, most of us are pretty cannabis savvy. Most of us are regular cannabis users. But you know what? Those of us who've been longtime cannabis users may not necessarily know or have realized all the real benefits of cannabis medicine. If you're having a tricky situation like dementia or cancer or something that traditional medicine, autoimmune or gut microbiome issues, or things that traditional medicine have not been sufficient in solving, try to find an experienced cannabis clinician that can advise you on how you can use different cannabis ratios or molecules in different ratios, to help or address stubborn or particular issues. Cannabis is particularly great for pain and for headaches and skin issues. One of our loved ones, one of our family members who is very conservative and very religious, has found some benefits also using cannabis medicine. She's using a CBD-based, what's supposed to be for sleep, only 10 milligrams. Actually, she's taking 20 milligrams, but it's only helping her gout, not for sleep.
Only.
Only. So when you can take away the fear, the first time I think she used cannabis medicine was when we were together at Christmas time in Colorado, and she had just had a knee procedure, a knee replacement, and was having a lot of like stiffness and pain from that. So I went to the dispensary and I got her a 1-to-1 patch, Mary's Medicinals patch, and I slapped that on the back of her knee because it goes on your knee or your wrist. And I slapped it on the back of her knee. I gave her half. So she had 5 milligrams of 1-to-1 on the back of her knee, and the pain was gone. She was able to move her knee. She felt better than she had. And I think that's what convinced her that this is not scary badness. This is not going to make her howl at the moon or go crazy. Plus, she's been around us for many years and knows that, yeah, we get stoned and yeah, we get high and stuff, but we don't seem to be that crazy. Not super weird. So when you can take away that fear, you can make converts out of very traditional people like Stephen Barbieri, who was not interested in getting the euphoric effects of cannabis medicine in the least. And in fact, when he uses THC, it causes him to have some paranoia, which is not good because his dementia also causes paranoia. So he finds that THCA and CBD are extremely beneficial, save the marriage. So
The underrated, the highly underrated raw cannabis.
yeah, for people who are using cannabis for a long time, specifically looking for the euphoric effects. I know I was one of those people, am one of those people, and Dave and some of the people in the chat. We use it to have a euphoric effect. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people call it medicinal also for different things. Like if you're depressed, you may want to feel some euphoria. If you're stuck inside, you may want to have some euphoria.
Well, there's recent science about the effect, the positive effect of cannabis on depression.
Yeah,
and
on THC,
and THC,
yeah.
and its connection to Alzheimer's and dementia, with depression, or leading to it as a cause of, as looking at as a way to treat dementia, or rather treat depression, is cannabis to help prevent Alzheimer's. Is what the study and the report was about. So you just have to start low, go slow, find your dose and your right ratio.
Yeah.
Form factors, baby. New buzzword of the week.
Form factors. Yeah, we didn't know what that was.
Factors.
But Gypsy Lady Lee, to answer your question, THC or CBD, in regards to the knee replacement, it was a 1-to-1 CBD to THC topical, transdermal topical product that we stuck on the back of her knee. It's all scienced out and stuff, and it smooshes through your skin.
Mary's Medicinal, excellent product.
Excellent product.
Yeah,
I don't know how it works.
Or
it's
where it's available. I think if you're in
Colorado or California, they're a multi-state operator.
Where it's legal and regulated.
It's female owned, and I think minority owned. I'm not sure though, but
could be
female for
could
sure.
Be right about that.
Anyway, Mary's Medicinals, great product, 1-to-1, really helped take all the pain away for somebody who was totally cannabis naive. And
despite the fact that there are more than 40 cannabinoid receptors based on latest Israeli research, not just 2 in the endocannabinoid system, topical THC does not get you high or give you any euphoria or any type of those side effects, or effects, call them effects, if you will, from a 1-to-1. depending on your receptors. I like how Dr. Bone talked about, if you need 1,500 milligrams, if you need that level of usage, your doctor should be able to write that, or say that. The fact that they have to write letters is pretty ridiculous. To beg to get for pain relief and anxiety, to write letters to say, I want to use this.
There has to be some mechanism of education, and this seems to be the mechanism. So we as patients need to bring in studies to our doctors and educate our doctors, because our doctors are in turn educating legislators.
Right.
So, and I find that that's the case also with like union politics and stuff. I'll write letters to members of the board and give them the right information so that they have the information to be able to make a argument at the table. So you got to give the people, I don't think some doctors necessarily are anti-patient empowerment.
Well, that's a new what's the new rage? All the new rage is
the rage is patient-centered care.
Patient-centered, and what's it called? Crossover medicine? No, it's
functional medicine.
Functional medicine. That's
yeah. Not everybody believes in that, but everybody does believe in patient-centered care.
Right. And
if you're the patient and you believe in cannabis medicine, bring in information for your doctor to learn.
Educate them.
Educate your doctor.
And find, the mentoring is a great idea. Have your doctor find a cannabis mentor, like Dr. Melanie Bone.
Or they can go to the Society of Cannabis Clinicians.
Or go to the Society of Cannabis Clinicians. Or
find one there.
Dr. Tischler has a place you can find them.
Yeah. Eloise Thiessen, nurse practitioner, also Radical Health.
Radical Health educates, teaches nurses, and gives trying to find a way to give credits for nurses to learn more about cannabis medicine. So
and
it's
Dr.
really encouraging.
Yafai at the Relief Institute, she does education as well.
It's all really encouraging. But the thing is, they all know that's the key to changing this and starting to change this as quickly as possible. Psilocybin also coming up in the conversation, brought up by Dr. Bone, actually, which was, we didn't bring it up, but she actually brought it up. Where we're headed, it's going to be on the ballot. It was, in
Oregon.
In Oregon, it's approved, and we're going to
eventually it'll be on the ballot in California.
Anything else to say about this week's episode of Cannabis Helps Dementia and upcoming?
No, we are good. Upcoming, we will be having,
Kebra, Dr. Kebra.
It's not doctor. I was trying to figure out what her right title is. I think she's studying to be a nurse practitioner, but she is an RN. And the only African-American cannabis dispensary license holder in the state of Connecticut, Kebra Smith Bolden.
Right. Awesome.
She will be on our show next week. We're going to chat with her on Monday, and I'm excited about that.
Hey, I want to just give you props and thumbs up that that was the first time we videoed our recording of our VO. I thought that was quite engaging.
Oh, right
on. A little
on.
behind the scenes recording of our podcast there, of our
the
intro.
scenes.
I think that was kind of fun. And we turned that bugger around in 12 hours.
By we, I mean Dave. I wrote a couple things for the show description, but it was all Dave.
We turned that over in less than 24 hours to get it up on Friday morning, and we're going to do the same this week with Kebra, and I can't wait to talk about Connecticut and what it's like to be the only one in Connecticut in the cannabis space that's trying to get in where people are being blocked out.
Also, I want to know from her about cannabis in the African American community in Connecticut.
Yes.
Is there a extra big stigma because of how cannabis has ruined a lot of Black and brown communities? Or is it just sort of your run-of-the-mill stigma? The story of her grandma is amazing. So her grandma used to use cannabis to help her joints. She would smoke a joint, take a bath, and help her RA. And then her grandma at 90-something had an aneurysm and couldn't move or do anything really like she used to. Totally devastated her life. And Kebra Smith Bolden, at the time, was a CNA and studying to become an RN, and she was studying to become a doctor. And then she had to then help take care of her grandmother and became an RN after that. And then, saw the benefits of cannabis medicine. So when it became legal, I think she moved into that arena.
There is a generation, a certain generation that was using it as in folk medicine, and also used, quite regularly. It all depended on where you were and, what type of propaganda and quite frankly, what color you were, essentially. But and that continues today. So
yeah, still totally continues today
in the industry as well as in criminal justice. I mean, we see good news every week. Virginia, small tubes it was the small tubes that reminded us.
Yes.
Virginia signed their governor signed into law decriminalization.
Yeah.
And
always feel free to share.
This week.
Always feel free to share your news in the chat.
Totally.
News from your locality that's particularly newsworthy. Because, y'all, we're focusing as much as possible on, mostly medical kind of stuff. But if there's really something interesting or cool in your area that we haven't touched on, or for sure, bring it up and let's talk about it. But Dave has lots of new stuff to talk about now.
We're gonna roll up some headlines and smoke them and get out of here. So let's take a look at some of the headlines that we're gonna put in this joint. I'm full of puns today.
You're super punny.
My apologies to the Facebook crowd over anybody over there. We had a late start over there on Facebook. But as Chela said, we got a lot going on. As you can see in the background.
Well, you made it.
Chela says, just even from our interview Thursday, she's like, ooh, the background changed even since then.
Totally, man.
We are hightailing it out here, folks. This is our last live broadcast from the Mount Washington here in Los Angeles, California.
I don't know. No, we might do next weekend.
No, I'm saying, one more. Next week is our last one. Yeah. It's our second to last broadcast. And then we are getting out of Dodge Monday or Tuesday, heading north.
Yeah.
Heading north to the hills, to the green mountains and redwoods of
I'm not sure if we'll have an episode that week.
Oregon coast. Exciting.
Not sure.
Exciting.
But yes, we'll do a check-in.
Oh, we'll definitely be checking in. Well, we're going to create a whole new thing. A whole new thing. It's a whole new world. We're going to do something new.
We are.
We're going to do something that's new coming up for our Oregon trip. To recap and roll up the news, we already talked about Biden's marijuana plan is out of step with public opinion. Nope, we don't get legal marijuana from either candidate on the, I don't think we're going to hear about it at all for the election, quite frankly. I think it's gone in that conversation. It is up to the states, apparently. Also, we heard about it from Dr. Bone, the microdosing. Times of Israel, medical marijuana best taken in microdoses with no high, Israeli firm says. Well, so does Dr. Bone. Starting with that 1 milligram. Pretty amazing. All right, let's get into the headlines. Follow me at DC420LA over on Twitter. That's where I tweet out these headlines.
Tweets?
I don't know where you tweet, but I tweet over on Twitter. And these are some of the things I twit. Tweeted? I'm not sure what it is.
I don't know, but I'm getting hot.
Hey, look, more research, Chela, on CBD.
I'm hot.
Okay, but I'm on the mic. Here, you mute yourself and turn on the fan. There you go. But I'm hot. I know you're hot. We're going to talk about that with Dr. Melanie Bone. Researchers, this in the Chicago Tribune, researchers say CBD could provide vital treatment for coronavirus. Now, we've been seeing this every week. Mostly about the researchers in Canada kept coming up in the news.
Make sure you're taking your CBD, people. I'm yelling because my microphone's off.
What?
Because even people who use cannabis.
Just mute if you want to. Leave it on.
I want to say something.
I know you do.
Add to this.
I know.
Building on what you're saying. 4 people at one of our local
God.
dispensaries were diagnosed with coronavirus. And the people that work there are all young people. I don't know for a fact that they were the young people who work there, but everybody there is young. So I'm pretty sure most of them don't use CBD. And they all got coronavirus. I'm just saying, the research is aiming at CBD. We should probably make sure to include CBD in our vitamin regimen. As cannabis users, we owe it to ourselves to use all the molecules of the plant to improve our immunity and
Give our endocannabinoid system a little help.
all the help it can get through this whole thing.
Because we're hurting it in many other ways. Most of those ways cause Alzheimer's too, might be directly related to the endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome.
But we're not doctors.
We're
We're
not
researchers. We're just
But
guessing.
believe me, when that comes out, you'll hear it from us first. And it'll come. It'll come.
All right.
But hey, this is they're still looking at CBD for coronavirus. This is in Chicago Tribune. It's not from Canada. This is from a paper that has come out from the University of Nebraska and Texas Biomedical Research Institute. They now believe CBD could reduce the lethal lung inflammation caused by COVID-19. In a peer-reviewed article published in this month's issue of Brain, Behavior, and Immunity, the researchers called for more studies into cannabinoids for their antiviral and anti-inflammatory capabilities to combat coronavirus. Acute infection is associated with the cytokine storms, from the quote, which contributes to the symptoms of fever, cough, muscle pain, unquote, researchers wrote. In severe cases, lung inflammation could lead to pneumonia, making it difficult to breathe for patients who already have weakened immune system. We know, we've heard all this about the coronavirus. This is the study here published over at NCBI, PMC. SARS-CoV-2 induced respiratory distress. Can cannabinoids be added to antiviral therapies to reduce lung inflammation? So another angle being looked at for CBD. Is this only CBD? Or is this, nope, this is THC. No, oh no, wait. Okay, no, this is CBD. This is looking at CBD. So there you go. CBD being looked at in another study, not in Canada. This is in the U.S. Interesting. On decriminalization efforts. Congratulations, Virginia. Congratulations, Nevada County, California. District Attorney to dismiss decades worth of marijuana convictions. Nevada County, population 99,000, has filed a motion to dismiss hundreds of low-level marijuana convictions dating back to the 1970s. Several other felony marijuana convictions will be reduced to misdemeanors. So good news. More of that happening locally as well as state efforts. And immediate decriminalization happening in where? Kansas City, Missouri? What? Just removed all criminal penalties for pot possession. How much? How much? There's always a hitch. Kansas City voters already decriminalized minor cannabis possession in 2017 by way of a local ballot initiative. Under this measure, the penalty for possessing 35 or fewer grams of weed became a $25 fine, and possession of over 35 grams would be a $500 fine. Keep it under an ounce, people. With no chance of jail time or a permanent criminal record. That's actually great. That's pretty much what California did back in, that was during Schwarzenegger's day. I forget what prop it was or what it was, but he signed basically, it was an ounce. So 35 grams, a little more in Kansas City, Missouri, decriminalizing 35 grams. Speaking of psilocybin, is Vegan Metro in the chat? He sent me this over on the direct messages on the Twitter at DC420LA, talking about our journey and our psilocybin measure approved for Oregon's November ballot. We will be voting in California, however, I believe. That's the plan anyway. I think this is we're on a road trip until we get some work down here in the biz. So we really aren't, anyway, we don't have well, Enough said about that. But some Oregon residents are going to be able to vote for psilocybin. This is psilocybin therapy guided through, I believe, a psychiatrist of some kind of officially licensed therapist. And it's probably psilocin, the synthetic form. We'll see. We'll see what the ballot measure actually reads. But it's going to be on the ballot. Meanwhile, DC was trying to do that, but a congressman hopes to block the DC psilocybin decriminalization bid. Representative Andy Harris is less than thrilled that psilocybin has a fighting chance at decriminalization in Washington, D.C. Let's see what he said. This is a bald-faced attempt to just make these very serious, very potent, very dangerous, both short-term and long-term hallucinogenic drugs broadly available. Well, yeah. Of course that's what it's for. That's the idea. It's a healing plant. Well, not a plant, but you know what I mean. Healing. Look how healing it is. Psilocybin is better at treating depression than ketamine. New study finds. Wow. Sit down, Congressman. Ketamine received federal approval as a treatment for depression in 2017, but a new study suggests that psilocybin is even more effective. Let's see here. The present study, published last month in the ACS Chemical Neuroscience Journal, concluded 2 experiments to determine whether psilocybin could be an even more effective treatment for depression and anxiety than ketamine. In the first experiment, researchers placed mice in forced swim test, an inescapable tank full of water. Oh, that doesn't sound fun on mushrooms, actually. Once a week for 5 weeks in a normal FST experiment. I had no idea about this test, by the way, guys. I'm reading this. You're learning this with me. An inescapable tank. Oh my God. Once a week for 5 weeks in a normal FST experiment, mice are forced to swim constantly as there is no escape from the tank. Some mice eventually give up swimming, which researchers have identified as depressive-like behavior. Yeah, you think? They're like, fuck this. Oh, fuck this. Oh, forget it. Just forget it.
So they drown.
My God, there's got to be a happy ending to this story. Hang on, I got to find it. The mice that were given psilocybin and early exposure to the maze were more eager to explore the open areas than the other group of mice. Mice that were given ketamine or saline plus early exposure to the maze were not as likely to enter the open areas. For this reason, researchers concluded that mice given psilocybin were experiencing less anxiety than the other mice. Animal experiments in general are pretty terrible, but everybody, it's a hard fact. Every scientist we talk to about in cannabis is like, well, in mice models, that's a mice model right there.
That's terrible.
Mice models. Did we come up with any names?
Mouse models?
Yeah.
No.
Kate Mouse.
Oh, yeah.
Kate Mouse. The only one we came up with. And how creative does cannabis make you when we can't come up with any mouse model names?
No, I don't know. I think about them.
Well, listen, there's more to cannabis than just getting high.
Lily Love says she's going to have mouse nightmares.
Oh, God, swimming. Ah, no.
Forget it.
All right, forget it. Let's talk about some other good research. Let's talk about some other non-mice model research.
Yeah, real live research.
Real live research. You say
Cannabis really helps menopausal women.
that's not what this UCLA scientist was
No,
awarded
but
$4 million to do.
Evidence.
You're just if someone awarded you $40,000 to study that, you'd do it.
They
But
just gave me the weed.
if they just gave me $4 million worth of weed, I'd be good. No, UCLA scientist awarded $4 million grant to study terpenes. Terpenes as an opioid substitute.
God forbid we should actually study cannabis.
This is a $3.9 million grant from the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. Complementary, that's what I was talking about. At the National Institute of Health to study the effects of cannabis terpenes on chronic pain. The money will also fund research into whether all natural flavonoids. I got rid of my arthritis pain, Clarice, with some flavonoids and terpenes. Flavonoids. They're going to study flavonoids to get rid of pain. Let's see. Over the 5 years, Cooper and the UCLA Cannabis Research Team will look specifically at 2 terpenes commonly found in cannabis. Can you guess what they are? No. Myrcene, which is the most common, as I recall. Nope.
Beta-carotene.
Yeah. Ding, 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 ding. The 2 most common.
Beta-carotene and myrcene. Okay.
Test subjects will, that's good, considering it's in all cannabis, pretty much. Yeah. Test subjects will consume just the terpenes in one study and then consume a combination of terpenes and THC in another trial to analyze the pain-relieving and intoxicating effects of each compound in addition to the THC portion of the test. UCLA researchers will test terpene consumption on opioid users to see if myrcene and beta-caryophyllene can help reduce dosages in opioid-reliant chronic pain patients. That's pretty cool.
Molecules.
Hey, it's science, baby. It's science. That's what they like. That's what the researchers like. They like those molecules. It's easy to track. Easy to track. In cannabis, sort of cannabis industry politics crossover, this article in Forbes, was Barr's marijuana antitrust investigation really illegal? Was it really targeting it? I still think you protest too much. Listen, they've all got a hard-on for cannabis. They all do. Whether it's Sessions, who's coming back into the Senate, or is trying to anyway. Maybe some progressive will keep him out. But it doesn't matter. These prohibitionists,
Would run against him just to,
they're not, listen, they're not all like what's the guy, the guy, you know the one I'm talking
Yes,
about.
I'm all in. This is the time to go all in on cannabis.
Yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Yeah, no, that's the one I don't like. Yeah, no, he's coming back, and Boehner, of course, Boehner's company got in a little trouble this week, and I don't think I actually have the story up, but Acreage hold in Cannabis Sativa, Mr. Sativa, in little old Massachusetts. Apparently, Acreage Holdings tried a little bit too hard to go around the cannabis laws and get, I think, 9 dispensaries open in Massachusetts. I think the number is 9, and you're only allowed to have 3. One company is only allowed to have 3 licenses, and they apparently knowingly went after 9 or so, and they're being fined $250,000 per attempt over 3 in the state of Massachusetts. So Boehner, are you still okay with that?
Yes, I'm all in. This is the time to go all in on cannabis.
Okay, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can handle that $250,000 little small drop in the bucket. Hey, no wonder so much stuff is actually happening over in Israel as far as figuring out what's going on with medical cannabis, or at least we know why we're getting more and faster information. Israel overtakes Germany as the largest importer of medical cannabis flower. By July, Israel had imported more than 6 metric tons of cannabis flower into the country, according to Cannabis Magazine editor Oren Leibovich. So they are studying and they're also using it, but they are studying it and using it like crazy as a medicine. They really believe it's medicine over there, and they take it very seriously.
But even like Meshulam doesn't take it.
No, he doesn't take CBD. He doesn't take it as a vitamin.
Cannabis medicine himself.
Very molecule oriented. He doesn't need it and feel he needs it. They very much feel like.
It's so weird because it's a vitamin.
They haven't gotten there yet.
It's an essential nutrient.
I think you're right. You've been saying that. Dr. Bone backed you up on our podcast, and I think you're right. The doctor agreed. Doctor listened to all of our podcasts and recommends it to her nursing students.
Doctor thinks we're cool.
That was totally unprompted, by the way.
Totally.
I had no idea she was going to say that.
No, but I'm going to ask everybody that. Is there anything else you want to tell people? Yes, your show is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's going on the highlight. That's going on the highlight reel.
Jason said the same thing. She said
That's
good
true.
stuff about us too.
She did. That's right.
Yeah. All right. Go on.
So he may not yet agree that cannabis is medicine and that it helps Alzheimer's and dementia, but Seth Rogen, actor, comedian, writer, is to headline Reimagining Justice, a July 15th conference on cannabis and racial justice. So good on Seth for that. Let me just see where that is. Hollywood A-lister and cannabis entrepreneur Seth Rogen will lend his star power. Former NBA star Al Harrington, also a writer for Mary Jane, will attend. So will NAACP President and CEO Derek Johnson. The event is Reimagining Justice, 3.5-hour live stream event focusing on cannabis and racial justice reform, scheduled for Wednesday, 1 p.m., 4:30 Eastern, sponsored by Marijuana Policy Project on MPP's Facebook Live. So we'll check. We didn't miss that, did we? Did we miss that?
What?
No, it's this Wednesday, right?
I don't know. I wasn't listening. I was typing.
What is today? Today's 12th. Yeah, okay, it's Wednesday. Yeah, we're good. We're good. I didn't miss it.
Yay.
Yay, we didn't miss it. We'll pick that up.
We've been moving, you guys.
I know.
Packing. I don't know if you noticed.
But
there's nothing left in the bookcase. All of our stuff's gone. It's all gone.
Like we said, Ohio adds first medical cannabis condition since program launch, and it ain't anxiety. But other qualifying conditions are Alzheimer's, cancer, epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, post-traumatic stress disorder, and cachexia. How do you say it?
I don't know.
You said it right the last time.
Did I?
I think you did.
imitated you. Cachexia.
Cachexia?
It's where your whole body crumples up.
Right.
Like my mom.
Wasting syndrome. Yes, you
Wasting
said that.
syndrome. Yeah, it's
First condition added to the MMJ qualifying condition list by the state board.
Cachexia.
Anxiety and autism were tried to get on there, but they refused.
Other qualifying conditions in Ohio include Alzheimer's disease.
That's right. Alzheimer's is on the list in Ohio. So get thee to a dispensary.
Indeed.
In Ohio.
I'm going
That's
to find
good.
out.
Get thee to a dispensary.
True story. I'm going to find out how to help assisted livings in these states develop programs.
Yep.
And then solicit them and try to get them onto some program.
That's what we're going to start in Oregon.
Yeah.
Ways for people to do that. We can do that online. No problem.
Yes, we can totally do that remotely.
I'm all in.
I'm all in.
I'm all in.
You're all sweaty because you gave me the fan.
I did.
Yes, I'm all in. This is the time to go all in on cannabis.
Well, I found your story, Mr. Boehner. You're all in for $250,000. Massachusetts marijuana regulators fine Acreage Holdings $250,000 for attempting to exceed license cap. Cannabis Control Commission also cites 2 operators for using banned pesticides.
No.
National marijuana operator, the largest, by the way, Acreage Holdings, has agreed to pay Massachusetts $250,000 to resolve charges that it attempted to control more dispensaries than allowed by law. Oh, it might be just $250,000. I thought it was for every attempt. So he might have, old John Boehner might have negotiated a pretty good deal on that.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Yeah, I know. But in Massachusetts, they do. And Boehner's company, though, trying to get around the laws in Massachusetts. Meanwhile, that long-awaited review, Chela, of CBD guidance from the FDA.
Yes.
The White House has completed its review.
Yes.
And they have put out the result. No,
Trump CBD?
No, wait, they haven't put out the results. No, in fact, they don't know when they're going to put out the results, Chela.
Ivanka CBD? No. When
No.
Ivanka gets her shit online is when it's going to happen.
That is an excellent plot point.
Thank you.
And I think that's a brilliant addition to this narrative.
Yeah.
As soon as maybe it'll be Tiffany.
No.
No, you think it'll be Ivanka? Ivanka's CBD line.
It should be Tiffany though, because she's known as the fat one, and she should come out with a diet line. Amongst her family, she is. Oh, it's horrifying what they do. Oh, it's just disgusting. She's not fat.
Tiffany has been showing up in more pictures lately. I don't know what's going on.
I can't believe that they keep.
I think it's re-election. It's re-election time. Tiffany, come on, let's go onto the trail.
No,
Onto
if you
the
want
trail.
your trust fund, Tiffany, you have to show up with us.
That's right. That's right. And what's with the pink? She wears pink, right?
Whatever. I don't know. She wears all colors.
Meanwhile, the FDA submitted its proposed plan titled Cannabis and Cannabis-Derived Compounds, Quality Considerations for Clinical Research to the Office of Management and Budget in May. Few details are known about its contents, but the FDA spokesperson previously told Marijuana Moment, where this article comes from, that it could inform the agency's approach to developing regulations for marketing of CBD. Whoa, good. The OMB finished its review last week and first reported by Inside Health Policy. This comes days after a spending bill for FDA was released that includes a provision providing funding to develop a framework for regulating CBD products. So we're going to get a framework with before you know it.
Yeah.
And if it's anything like the DEA's movement on allowing more farms to grow research cannabis, it'll be 2-3 years before we have any guidance on actually how CBD should be regulated here in the United States. So let's not hold our breath on that, Chela. But let's say goodnight to all the folks and tell them we'll be here one more time next week from Mount Washington.
Yes.
For Cannabis Saves the World with another great episode of Cannabis Helps Dementia podcast.
Yeah, with Keeper Smith Bolden.
With Keeper from Connecticut. We're staying on the East Coast next week. With more East Coast, West Coast battles, cannabis doctors and
Oh
entrepreneurs.
gosh, I sure hope I can also get an
Healthcare providers.
Oregon doctor for the first week we're in Oregon. I'm going to work on that.
Oh, that's a great idea.
One of the doctors' knocks would be amazing.
Doctors Knox
I'm
are in
going to
Oregon.
send them another note.
There's, every week we're finding more and more exciting things about Oregon and the possibilities up there. And we're totally looking forward to the adventure and taking everybody else on the adventure with us.
Yeah, I hope the film industry never comes back.
Well, yeah, as the Chinese farmer proverb says, maybe.
Maybe.
The film industry is dead. Not a terrible thing. Maybe. If you listen to Alan Watts or any of that, you know what I'm talking about. But thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Brian Arbor, for the super chat. Thank you. Thank you so much for the support. Go on and rate and review us for Cannabis Helps Dementia on Apple iPods. Or
Yes, Apple
Podcasts on
iTunes, Apple
iTunes.
Podcasts. That'd be great because that helps us get known to other people.
Totally. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Share this show. This
All
is
the
our.
things.
This is where you see the premiere of the video version of the podcast. And that will be uploaded tomorrow as its own standalone video. But you get to see that here first on Sundays. Because, of course, on Fridays, it's just the audio podcast. And so you get to see us talking to the doctors. And
Oh, we don't tell people about this.
about what? Oh, no, about the whole thing. About this show.
Sunday
About this
show
Yeah.
is a secret show.
Yeah.
It's only for you
ever-evolving.
19 people watching.
We're back up to 19.
So
That's
do
pretty exciting.
not tell anyone about it. This is just for us. Our little secret. Tell everyone you know about the Friday show.
It has been sort of a vanity project for 3 years. It's true.
No,
but
it's
Chela's
been
gotten more.
research and development.
Tell me if I'm wrong. Chela's gotten more and more into it over the last few years.
Of course,
The last,
but it's
you know,
been
since
research
we
and
started.
development. Moving forward, it's
Totally.
it's the
Oh, it's all-
foundation of everything.
No experiment is bad.
It's all good
It's all
stuff.
been good. I've had a great time doing it. It's evolution of this channel.
Yeah.
And, we multi-stream on lots of places so people can find us. Follow us on Twitter. Follow me at DC420LA. Follow Chela at Cannabis Helps on Twitter. We're Cannabis Helps Dementia on Instagram. I'm at DC420LA on all the socials. And
We're going to figure out something for our travel log.
yes, we haven't quite figured out the official name for the travel log yet, but we will have it next week. we'll have it next week. That'll be our goal for next week's show. And maybe we'll have
so much pressure.
Hey,
we have to do our taxes this week.
Maybe we'll have a visit from Ease and Flow. And, on preparing for the visit, because we got our car bag. We get to practice packing it now.
Car bag.
Our car bag is here. So now
we're
gonna. It's here. The car bag's here.
Oh, I didn't realize it was here.
Yeah, the car bag is here. The 20 cubic foot car bag.
It goes on top of the car.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week.
Have a great week.
And send postcards and letters to your elected officials that cannabis is medicine, cannabis is essential, and to deschedule that shit.
Stay healthy, wear a mask, wash your hands.
All the things.
All the things. Don't be an idiot. And most of all, free the plant and free the people.
Yes.
Pot for peace. We'll see you next week, everybody.
Ciao.
Murderers keep murdering, the churches keep a-burning, the rapists keep a-raping, and the tide ain't turning. Uncle Sam, for all your power, things get worse every hour. It seems to me your energy's unwasted, chasing my friends and me. Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. The terrorists keep terrorizing, our leaders keep a-lying, the haters keep a-hating, and the planet's dying. Do what's proper, call off your dogs and your helicopters. The problems of society were not caused by my friends and me. So hey, Uncle Sam, hey there, Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. How many innocent people gonna be imprisoned? We just peace and love and street pop and brotherhood freaks. A touch of Mother Nature never made nobody violent, never made nobody hate nobody or break nobody's peace. Since we've never been shown to be harmful, don't you tell me no lies with your caffeine, codeine, nicotine eyes. The cannabis ban is just recent, just since 1938 to legalize it, realize it. You made a big mistake. Hey, Uncle Sam, hey there, Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. Leave us pot smokers alone. Uncle Sam, understand I love you, but leave me alone. Smokers alone. Leave us pot smokers alone. Our leaders keep a-lying. Leave us pot smokers alone. Terrorists keep terrorizing. Leave us pot smokers alone.
Yes, I'm all in. This is the time to go all in on cannabis.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
We need to talk about your marijuana problem. You know, what's your problem with it?
This drug is dangerous. You cannot play with it. It's not funny. It's not something to laugh about.
You can argue the pluses and minuses of marijuana, but marijuana ain't heroin. So we have to end that, and that's what I will do. As President of the United States, I believe we can do that through executive order, and I will do that.
Smoke weed every day.